Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, Sixers, to episode 87 of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is July 5th, 2021. I'm Bill, and I'm joined, as always, by my streetwise co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome, everyone.
I'm glad you noticed. Not enough people talked about how much street smarts I have.
I said so streetwise, not wise guys.
Oh.
I would not survive.
Before we get started, we do want to remind our listeners that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means if there's something in the Cosmere you haven't read and you're worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go read those first, but then come back, join the discussion, take part, and just enjoy. Tonight we are taking a look at two characters from two different series in the Cosmere, but they're both cut from a similar cloth. Those two characters are Vin, the main character of the Mistborn novels, and Lift, the precocious little edge dancer from the Stormlight archive. For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you that it's possible for our listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. We record episodes of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so please join us and take an active part in the show. The show is, of course, made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. The show will continue to be free, but if you want to help out, you can head on over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies and pledge $1 or $2. It really helps us out as we work to keep things moving. Patrons do get immediate access to our Discord channel where you can talk about the show and the Cosmere with other listeners. It's a great community. We've got a lot of great discussions on all sorts of topics. You also get early access to bonus episodes. You get exclusive access to other bonus content and other good stuff. Okay, guys. Vin and Lift. When you hear about them, you don't really think, one doesn't really remind you of the other. But honestly, when you look at them, they've got very similar backgrounds.
They do, yeah.
And so there's a lot to compare, but there's a whole lot to contrast as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was... It's one of those things that strikes you that Brandon does like certain tropes, and the street urchin does seem to be one that he really enjoys.
But he took it two very different ways with these guys.
Very different.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because Vin is this very stoic and
Pessimist.
almost angry at first, but very, very bleak character at the beginning who grows into a much more complete character. She heals over the course of the series. And Lift is a different kind of broken.
Yeah.
Well, it's the
she portrays herself as very optimistic and like fun-loving and childish and just all of that, but she actually has a lot of pain that she's hiding.
Yes. If you read the book, the novella Edge Dancer, that's one of the reasons I like that one, is it gives you a deeper look into her as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things that really separates them is the fact that, I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was in the most recent, like the interlude that we had with her, where she talked about Lift tried to, she said she tried to stop caring, after her mother died, but she obviously couldn't do it. She swore oaths to be an edge dancer. It's literally the opposite of that. Whereas Vin,
it just came naturally.
Well, it's I wouldn't say it even came naturally. It's Reen literally beat that into her head because
when I say it came naturally, it wasn't an active choice. It just sort of circumstances led her to that.
Yeah, because the Ska streets were very rough, and Reen knew the truth that the Steel Inquisitors were after them, and so.
And Reen was a harsh teacher.
Yes.
He was.
I mean...
Like, he abused her to get these lessons into her head. Him thinking this is what's necessary for her to actually survive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all,
you stop and you he wasn't an adult. He was a kid himself,
Right.
and he never had a father, or we don't know where his father was. Yeah, and Vin's father obviously was not a good example, plus you didn't want him around at all. And so he kind of had to be the man of the house, and then his mom went crazy and died, and all of these other problems. So it's...
Well, and they saw her
Yeah.
kill
Crazy
their
and got
other
caught.
sibling.
Got caught, okay. Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing is Vin actually, one of her earliest founding memories was watching her mother murder her little sister.
Yep. And then
then offer the
earring.
murder weapon to her as a gift because
she-
she's been chosen.
All sorts of wrong.
So messed up, but
It
it
definitely
makes her just such a fascinating character.
Yeah, it's one of the things that definitely starts the differences between the two. Is Lift has these happy memories of her mother, and she's trying to stay there in that moment of happiness. Vin did not start in a happy place. Vin had to earn a happy place.
No.
Lift had
Vin's-
to earn a different thing.
Yeah.
Vin snapped during birth.
You just have to wonder.
Like her first memories were that kind of trauma, and it
Yeah.
didn't get better.
Not for a long
for it
time.
to get better.
Yeah. So you mentioned Lift's mother. Let's take a look at each of their family situations then, because Vin, her father was Tavidian Tekiel. She didn't know this really or who he was for a while, but he was the Lord Preland of the Steel Ministry. Big name, big guy, lots of power, who really didn't want word getting out that he had sired children with a ska.
Yeah.
He didn't think she was a ska. He thought she was a noble. She had been convinced that she was a noble, so he was a little bit lax with her, with trying to stop her, to the point where he actually had 2 children with her,
Yeah.
Vin and the aforementioned little sister, who
We don't have a name.
we don't have a name for her, but we do know she was a seeker,
Yeah.
which leads to the big reveal that still bugs me when other people figure it out earlier than me. And if my nephew Jeffrey is listening, I'm talking about you, son. But that's the reason that Vin is able to pierce copper clouds,
Because she's got double.
because she's got a little bit of a boost. She's
Yeah.
got seeker power adding to her Mistborn power. Okay, so that's her father, and then her mother, like we said, was a ska prostitute.
Yeah.
And then she has an older half brother, Reen, who we've talked about him. But the thing that's interesting is, as harsh as he was with her, when he was captured and tortured to find out where she was, even until he all the way to death, he insisted that she had died of starvation, and he didn't give her up.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting moment. It makes their relationship that much more complicated.
Well, because he always promised her he would one day betray her, he would leave her, and because everyone will leave you, and this is the lesson you have to learn. And so this is the lesson that he taught her, and in the end, he was a liar.
And that's the thing. Her whole life, or particularly after he disappeared, she thought, "See, he came through on his promise. He betrayed me. And in the end, she finds out, no, that's the one promise he didn't keep."
Yeah. And that's the one that kind of means the most, though.
Yeah, he is the most, to me, the most fascinating character in the Cosmere we're never going to get any more of.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean he was a good person. He's not painted necessarily as being a good person, but he was painted as being multi-layered.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a great character, I think.
Well, and in that...
You can understand a lot of what he... Because, I mean, you have to imagine his upbringing was very problematic. And so what he knew were the streets and not being safe and all of these dangers and risks. And so he had to teach
And
her
he
what
knows
knew.
the Steel Ministry is coming after them. So he's under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
His thought is, these are lessons she has to learn no matter what. And so he taught them to her the only way he knew how.
Yeah.
It was vicious, it was brutal, it was rough.
Yeah.
But he was trying.
But exactly. It's just, complicated character.
It's one of those, I would love to to get more on him somehow, just because. Just what a cool thought! Just this character that is such a product of his upbringing, such a product of the world he lives in. Like, to run with a theme of Mistborn, he's a survivor, and he's just a man trying to do his best to get by, and it's what lets when I remember when she not snap, that's a different thing in that universe. When she goes off on the rest of the crew, talking about what do you guys know about really being a ska, and then she goes, she lays it all out for them. Those were the lessons that of her harsh childhood that Reen taught her and made her a very hard person who had to learn to open up, to let other people in, to trust again.
Now, meanwhile, Lift, she did have her mother. Enough to the point where she remembers her. She was old enough when her mother died that she remembers her. The musings that Lift has throughout the series, and particularly in Edge Dancer, she just mentioned, she's like, she remembered soft things like this, like mothers. And it's just sort of, it gives you insight into her character, just how important her mother was to her, even though she was so young.
Oh yeah, I mean, they keep doing studies and things about like the first 5 years of a child's life. You form huge chunks of a lot about
your character,
your character and your experiences and just a lot of things. And so you have to imagine that Lift was at least over 5.
I would think she'd have to be to form a Nahal bond.
But again, she remembers her mother very differently than Vin remembers hers.
Oh, yes.
Vin's mother was, she had trouble raising her kids because she had a mental illness that just led to issues to the point where she and then through that mental illness, Ruin reached through and just completely twisted her.
Oh, yeah.
And so Vin's memory of her mother is completely different from Lift's memory of hers.
I don't know that Vin would have. I don't know
Vin
that
remembers trauma.
Oh yeah, I mean, where you said Lift has memories of soft things, I don't know that Vin really has any memories of soft things.
No,
from that
Vin's
early
memory
on.
of her mother is her mother stabbing a copper spike into her ear.
Yeah, so that she doesn't have soft memories; they're hard memories.
They're pointy memories, literally.
Yeah, and it's interesting with Lift because we talk about how Vin had to learn to trust. Lift also had to learn to let people in because Lift has a very different defense mechanism that isolates herself, but she still got it.
Lift's is more of an indifference rather than hostility.
Yeah,
Vin is a beaten junkyard dog, and Lift is just sort of, you don't exist to me, you don't matter. I mean, it's almost the opposite of her oaths.
Well, I think that's why for the longest time she moves from place to place to place to place to place. She doesn't want to put down roots because if she puts down roots, she might start caring about someone again. And the only other person she cared about, her mother, left her, and that it hurts her. It's not that she mistrusts people. She clearly trusts people. She joins crews. She's friendly with them, but she doesn't want to form these bonds because these bonds. She knows the pain of losing something. Vin knew the pain of having nothing and always being on edge and worried about that this night could be your last.
She's hyper attentive, like that. She just can't sit still. She can't relax. She tries to hide in the background, whereas Lift is more flighty. It feels like to me.
Yeah, she's always on the move. Both are trying to prevent themselves pain in some way, shape, or form, but it manifests in very different ways.
Yeah. And the thing that's interesting is with Lift, her mother would often say how much she loved her little girl. And after her mother died, she wanted to remain that little girl for her mother. Because it's like if she came back and she didn't recognize me, she wants to be, she wants to stay that way. So to the point of going to the Night Watcher.
Yeah.
To ask you.
And then finding out it's actually cultivation.
Right. And it's just like that. That's definitely a big step. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because the wish is granted in a way different than she expects. That's one thing that's very interesting about Lift is she sees things so very black and white,
like a child.
It's like, this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I asked the Night Watcher for this, so this is what she was supposed to give me. She didn't. Something's wrong. Because she's thinking, I'm aging. I'm not the little girl. I'm not my mother's little girl anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just...
we don't know what actually happened in those vines.
Right.
Like, you think Lift's a very reliable narrator?
Mm-hmm.
No.
And then meanwhile, you were talking about Lift not wanting to form those bonds. Vin has directly, intentionally doesn't form those bonds for different reasons. Because
she's afraid of betrayal.
Yeah, she's been taught that forming a bond, friendship is a gateway to betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, well, I'm just going to keep those gates locked. I won't open them
safe
for friends, but that means I won't be betrayed either.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of Vin's whole arc. Like, I still love the comparison of the scene where in The Final Empire where Vin first shows up and she looks into the room where the crew is separately from them. She's this little girl hiding behind the corner, nervous as, because she doesn't know who these people are, what they're going to do to her.
Yeah.
And then later on, she reflects as she looks around the room and finds herself surrounded by people who love her. And the only way that was able to happen is she did have to open up to friendship, to love, to caring, to the possibility of betrayal. I mean, shoot, with Ellen, she's going through all sorts of stuff, but she ends up trusting him.
Mm-hmm.
It's very...
And Vin is able to trust.
Yeah.
And Lift is able to trust, though.
Yeah. But she actually trusts fairly easily. Like, not in a naive sort of way, but in a way of... she's not always worried about, is this person going to backstab me and stuff. She's socially adept. She understands how society works and how people work.
Mm-hmm.
She made friends with freaking Zeth.
Yep. Immediately.
Yep.
And Seth starts talking to her just casually. Like, it was an easy friendship for Zeth to form, and Zeth talks to shadows.
Honestly, Jordan, don't take this the wrong way. She reminds me of conversations I've had with you where she meets somebody and immediately thinks, oh, we're best friends now. They absolutely think I'm awesome.
Yeah, it's true.
And I was just like, you and I have had conversations.
Look, it's difficult just being on this level sometimes, but yes, I'm glad you noticed this. Thank you.
What kind of worms did I just open?
No. Although, ironically enough, the first time we've had Lift, her saying awesome all the time, I'm just like, I am tired of this little rat.
And I loved it.
Stop saying awesomeness.
I have a soft spot for the little girl characters and the petite women. I don't know, for whatever reason. I just always those
I love
characters.
Once we got to
felt
Edge,
like Brandon was trying a little hard at first.
Yeah, once we got to Edge Dancer, he toned down her saying awesomeness all the time. I've ranted on this before. I'll limit it. It's just it ripped me right out of the story because I'm like, no one would say this in this era. That is not a word. Awesome in that context is a very different word in ancient times, which is closer to what they are.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so every single time I'm just like, stop saying that.
But no, you're right, Amy. Like, she is I love those types of characters.
And Professor in chat brings up something that was one of my points I wanted to bring up. They both refer to their powers because they both learn about their powers before they really get taught about their powers. Yeah. And both come up with a word for them. Vin's I always liked because it made so much more sense to call it my luck. And I believe most of the time she was using a pushing medal, so she was literally pushing her luck. And whereas awesomeness just never felt like it fit to me. But both understood there's something different about me. Didn't fully understand it. Lift knew that it had something to do with her deal with the Night Watcher, or so she thought, but she didn't really understand why. I mean, heck, she kept calling Wendell a
Avoid bringer.
Avoid bringer. But I mean, I also saw some notes about that, I think on the Copper Mine, about how she does that as kind of as a playful teasing thing.
Yeah.
With Wendell.
Honestly, some of this personality contrast, you can kind of look at it just in the way they have their hair. Because Vin purposely cuts her hair very, very, very short because she doesn't want attention drawn to the fact that she's a woman.
Because it's dangerous.
Because it's very, very dangerous in this situation. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Lift has very long hair, very long dark hair.
And it's clear that people who draw Lift fan art love drawing her long hair because she's
they do.
That's so cool.
It's just always running around with it, and it's just flapping in the wind,
which
I have
suits
to think
her
about
character.
I mean, I worry about how long it would take to brush that hair, but that's just because
she can make herself slick. She doesn't get knots.
Exactly. It'd just fall out perfectly.
Just slide would be great.
Oh wow. One of those mundane utilities for magic.
Yes.
Frankly, every edge dancer should have awesome long hair.
Flowing locks.
Flowing locks right there. My sort of flowing locks.
But it's just sort of, again, Lift trusts everyone. She just lets her hair fly free and just goes where she's going. And
I also kind of wonder if it's just kind of a utility thing that she probably doesn't bother to take the time, and she probably had long hair as a little girl, and so she probably wants to keep that style.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now just imagining Edge Dancer shampoo, Edge Dancer, because you swore it.
So both of them, it's also interesting. I mean, and it makes sense. Growing up in these big cities on your own, gravitated towards gangs, towards a crew, somebody to work with, because it's impossible. Like surviving on your own, you need help. You need somebody else. And so Vin ends up with Kammen's crew, and Lift ends up with Gox's family's, or not family, but just that group breaking into is it the Bronze Palace?
Yeah, the Bronze Palace.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because it's something that I think Kelsier talks about it with Vin, talking about how, or maybe it's just Vin musing to herself, about how you would think being at the centers of power, this is where thieves would avoid, because sorry, just completely distracted in chat. TKO my, I promise to moisturize the strands others have forgotten. Dang, that's good.
Somebody's second oath.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
So the nope, lost, gone. It's gone.
The thieves would want to go to that place. Thieves would try to avoid that location.
Yeah, they'd avoid where the power, because that's where they could be caught. But it's also where the most opportunity is, and so they're right on the edge of the danger, because it is right on the knife's edge of risk and reward.
Mm-hmm. And again, both of them, the first job that we see them as part of, they're reaching a bit beyond they normally would, because Lift is in with the Bronze Palace, and then they're going after a major obligator. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, that's not a good idea. I recommend otherwise.
But this is where we see a lot of their similarities, because they pick up a lot of the same lessons from growing up on the streets. Both are uncannily observant, especially for someone their age. We see with Vin, she's a very good eye for, like, she tells Kammen, no, you gotta get these people in worse clothes because we're not presenting the right image. And Kammen said, okay, yeah, that's a better play, and he goes with it, which is a big deal for him because he's so arrogant and he doesn't. But even he sees, okay, no, she knows what she's doing. I'm gonna trust her. Lift also sees people for who they really are, in a very different way, but she sees because I think partially, the reason she swears her oaths is she sees the pain inside people, and she sees through the facade of what people say they are, and she sees who they really are.
She feels much more like a people watcher, too. That she would see all the different little things that people don't think they're doing or showing or things to that effect, and so she would notice the little things like that. At least it feels that way to me.
Yeah.
One other thing that I noticed that was interesting is they're both thieves, right? But Vin does the more stereotypical, like, she steals what the crew wants to steal, but Lift won't. She steals
what she wants.
She steals food, and she will not steal from the poor. She only takes from people that she thinks can afford to have it taken.
Mm-hmm.
And
she
food.
doesn't steal the conventional things. Well,
she Robin Hoods.
She Robin Hoods, yeah.
No, Lift is very, very much an idealist. She just, everything's going to work out. Why? Because it's going to work out.
Because of my awesomeness, obviously.
If it doesn't work out, that's just wrong. That's not right. So it's going to work out.
That's
Vin
so far
assumes
some of
almost
her growth.
the opposite.
That's some of Lift's growth to start is because she has such a carefree attitude that she's avoiding responsibility. Because like she leaves Gox in the palace, and Wendell is sitting here, mistress, we should,
what are you doing?
Like people liked us there. We could have learned stuff. We could have progressed. And she's like, nope, that's how they get you. And she goes to move on, and she has to learn to start taking responsibility. Because she has no issue being a person of action. That's something Vin struggled with early on. Vin's just so busy trying to survive, she's not really trying to make things better. Lift,
and she doesn't want to make ripples and get noticed. And
whereas Lift has no issue being noticed. She kind of enjoys it.
She likes the thrill.
Yeah, it's interesting with Vin. Whether she's avoiding being the hero or being the hero, she's active about it. She's actively not being the hero. She's actively avoiding a situation where she would be put in that situation. And then when she finally decides to do it, she actively dives in, and she is, consciously going and trying to make this happen. Lift kind of slides into it.
Literally.
She slides away from, and yes, edged answer, but she just sort of slips into the role and takes naturally to it. Like when she's avoiding it, she's not looking, but it's not an active thing. It's just sort of she flows out of it and flows into it. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah.
Well, and I reminded of the line Tensoon says in Shadows of Self when Wax asks what was the Ascendant Warrior like. Oh. And he says something to the effect of she was whatever. Oh, you have it?
In a second I can have it.
Okay,
because I had it on my phone. Because I was looking stuff up earlier.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest moments of Shadows of Self, just because getting to see Tensoon again is great. And at this point, everything's moved into the realm of legends. We saw in Alloy of Law, they're in that graveyard, and we see
Marasi.
Yeah, Marasi. She sees the statue of Vin, and she's just like, oh, she had it all together, and oh, she's so amazing. She was she was both, the ultra feminine and all,
I'm sure she never doubted herself the way that I do.
Yeah, and then we get this in Shadows of Self.
So she was strong and vulnerable all at once. She was my last master and my greatest. She had a way of pouring everything of herself into what she did. When she fought, she was the blade. When she loved, she was the kiss. In that regard, she was far more human than any I have known.
Tensoon's a poet.
Yeah,
I love Tensoon.
Even if he doesn't like that he's a teddy bear now.
A Sunni cub.
Sunni cubs.
No, but it's such a great, because she threw herself completely at whatever she was doing. And part of it, part of it's her street survival. Kelsier talks about how a street urchin will fight with every last, thing it has, on, not holding nothing back. And we see that Kelsier did too, but we see it with Vin, where like she would attempt bold, insane plans that no one else would. Like, to her own detriment when she got trapped in the crypts underneath I forget the city, but the one where the Obligator was running everything in here in
Fat Rex.
It could be.
I think that was where Spook was.
Okay, yeah, and that's the thing is I get them all mixed up.
Yeah.
His name started with an O. Anyway,
yes.
She's like, wait, maybe if I flare or Duralium and push pewter, I might be able to burn off all this poison. And so she drinks it and then tries it, and then she promptly collapses because
that didn't work.
Yeah, but that's who she is. She throws herself completely out of plan and will try it. And whereas Lift's, like you said, she's sort of just like
she goes with it.
Yeah,
just gotta
Lift is all about Lift can fly by the seat of her pants.
Yeah,
something comes up and she's just like, okay, change the plan. Vin is just like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And she just sort of grinds through the thing. And Lift, by her nature as an etch dancer, just sort of slides around it rather. She's like, we can't get in there. Here's another way.
Well, and part of that's also, it's also informed a little bit by their powers, Obviously, being someone who can be frictionless or climb up any surface at any time, that means she has a lot of flexibility with her movement options. And if she ever makes a mistake, she can heal from almost anything. Whereas Vin doesn't have that flexibility. Vin has resources.
Her healing's different, yeah.
Yeah, she has resources. She has to manage it, and she has to figure out what to use and when. She has a wider suite of powers, but what they can do isn't so all-encompassing within those powers. And it's all about...
When she gets good at pinpointing and getting super precise with exactly how she's doing it, that's when she's at her best.
Yeah.
And she can dominate.
Yeah.
Oh, does she dominate? I'm going to casually take on the entire Steel Inquisition.
No, it's interesting watching the way that they care about people because Vin, her initial lessons from Reen were look out for yourself, look out just for yourself because nobody else will. Lift, like you mentioned earlier, she tries to learn that lesson. She's just like, I need to stop caring. But instead, she just makes the decision. She's like, no, I'm going to care about other people because they deserve to have someone care about them. So, Vin's thought is if I don't take care of myself, no one else will. And Lift's response is, I will. I will be that person that you don't think is there to care for you. But because, like, if there's nobody else who cares about you, that's where I come in. I will remember those who have been forgotten.
Yeah.
And Vin sort of internalizes it. And then learns, to turn that, to open that internalization to, here is my group of people, I care about them. And over the course of the series, that group grows to encompass the entire world of Scadrial. With Lift, it's basically whoever needs it, I'm here. So they get to a similar point through completely different paths.
Yeah.
The one key difference between the two, though, is even as far as Vin develops, she never becomes a nurturing person.
Right.
That's not who she is. Whereas Lift will hug darkness, get into submission.
I mean, she is literally powered by the light of cultivation.
Yeah. Ironic for someone who's trying not to change.
Well, and that's where she went, though, is she asked for help from, if she wanted to not change, honor might have been a better goal because that's very
Preservation would have been best.
It's much more stoic.
Preservation would have absolutely have been best. Would have been most what she thought she was looking for. Not necessarily best.
Best, but yeah.
No, but it's interesting because, Vin never becomes this nurturing person. I mean, Vin basically swears the ideals of the Windrunners. I'm trying to remember where she says that, but she says almost word for word, I will protect those, who can't protect themselves. And it's like, well, that's basically the second ideal.
And she flies.
Yeah, she does fly. But you look at the Windrunners. We wouldn't exactly say the Windrunners are the most nurturing order either. Like,
No.
Kaladin tried to save them, but it's because he's got to try and save them. It's not from this nurturing place. It's from this I have to save them place.
Exactly. He's a wall rather than a watering
blanket.
No, like a watering can.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I will protect you so that you can grow, rather than I will grow you so that you can protect yourself.
I'll give you all the resources so you can grow and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's also one of the other stark differences between the two is one, who in their early years, who did they travel with? One traveled with their Voidbringer, and the other one traveled with their brother. And we've already covered Reen, but growing up around Wendell and just constantly having to tell him, Wendell, please shut up.
Well, she didn't grow up with him because she hadn't had him for that long when the book started.
But at the same time, she learned pretty quickly how to use him, and
yes,
and it was very much this, not antagonistic, but at least for Wendell, very frustrating because he didn't choose her. Like, it's very different from the other Spren. Because
she took charge.
Well, no, like he literally did not choose her.
No, but what I'm saying is that Lift took charge in the situation while Vin is being like, she's in the subordinate position.
Yeah.
She starts that way, yeah.
Lift steps up and says, I'm the boss, this is what we're doing, and if you don't come with me, then you're the one who's going to be missing out because I'm awesome. And
well, and even when they get their mentor figures, Vin is still in the subordinate position. At first due to necessity with Kelsier, because he's the one who knows everything. He's literally her teacher. And then because he actually earns her respect, and she begins to believe in him just as much as the
rest of the crew.
Yeah, and then on top of it, you see Lift now starts to be a subordinate to people like Dalinar and stuff, but she's still pretty much trying to be a fly in the ointment. Like, anyone who tries to set up any sort of system of order, she's just gonna be like, let's see how it holds up when you don't have lunch.
I mean, the first time that they meet, she steps into a vision that she shouldn't be able to and starts calling him names.
Yep.
Yes.
You do see her trying to step in line, but she's still Lift.
She dances, she goes to the beat of her own drum a little bit, just that she doesn't like, she's not used to conforming. And if you're already like that, it's hard to fall. And I mean, Dalinar is a military man, so it's even more
right
that he wants things a very specific way.
No, well, she's in a very odd position with Dalinar because she is who she is. Mm-hmm. She wants to impress Dalinar, but she, and they're kind of at odds with each other. Mm. And so it'll be interesting to see how she develops. I am really looking forward to Era 2 to the back half of
Stormlight.
The Stormlight Archive, because I want to see grown up Lift.
It's gonna be interesting.
I think she's gonna be a cool character.
Mm, yeah.
She's got such a weird relationship with authority figures because she's not even trying to, but she ends up endearing herself to them because we
she's so genuine.
Yeah, we see Dalinar, who at first he's just like, what the heck just happened here? Because she just walks in, she steals the person he's trying to do his sales pitch to, and he's just gone. And Dalinar's just, okay, this is a thing
and
now.
Here's the story, and even the Stormfather's like, I don't know how she did that.
Yeah. And she's probably not even sure how she did it.
Yeah,
she just did it.
She goes so much on instinct.
She has an amazing talent to be where she's not supposed to be, and we see this carry out because she does
she's
that.
The opposite of Hoyd.
Yeah, well, she does it in the we see her do it to in the her very first appearance. She's where she's not supposed to be, and she ends up saving Gox
and making him emperor.
Yeah, accidentally. Which, by the way, the other thing
both of them did that.
Both of them made someone else emperor.
Yep.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Unintentionally.
But, yes. Mm-hmm. At least Vin had the good sense to be apologetic about it.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, Lift just said, "Ooh, that means that you're going to have interesting food."
like that's the thing. Vin does it, and she then proceeds to like, I'm going to be your assassin, and like she has Ellen's back the entire way, not just because she loves him, but because she knows she's figured out her role. Lift does it, and then just absolutely just KAT, I'm out of here.
Yep. Although she does eventually come back.
Yeah, she does eventually. Yeah. But that's her first. She's like, oh well, just moves on.
This is not my kind of scene, yeah.
But then on top of it, we see her get where she's not supposed to in Edge Dancer. She somehow endears herself to the Stump of all people, to Seth of all people, and to Nail of all people.
And to the people who keep the archives.
Yeah, well, and an Amian.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Amian, yeah.
Like, so in one, for Brandon, short story, she makes friends with the assassinated White, friend with a herald, but at least makes a good impression on a herald, an Amian, and then like this woman she literally calls the Stump, like the most insulting nickname you can give a person. Like,
but she comes to love her, and like
later on she's like, I like it. She's like, it's the nickname, it's endearing.
Yeah, in Words of Radiance, or not Words of Rhythm of War, we see her talking, and you're just like, she loves her. It's just. Yeah,
that's it. After seeing what her name actually is, I'm really glad she went with Stump too, because I cannot pronounce that mishmash.
Yeah, it's a hard name.
Yep.
But it's just what she does. She gets where she's not supposed to, including people's hearts.
Aww.
And then on top of it, getting where she's not supposed to, she was there to save Dalinar in the fight at Thalen Field. She's not supposed to be there. She's able to get into the middle of the thrill. When Seth looks at it, he's like, yeah, I don't think it's a good idea for me to go in there.
Yeah.
And Lift's just able to go in there without any issue.
Well, and Nail is there to kill the Stump. She shows up, and he's got full legal right to do exactly what he's doing. She shows up and plays the ultimate trump card by making Gox the Emperor, and Gox suddenly is like, she's pardoned. And suddenly Nail's whole basis for being there just poof, goes up in smoke.
She is so squirrely. Lift is that squirrel that like got into the house, and now you're trying to get it out, and you can't. It's like trying to catch the wind itself.
What was that cheesy movie from the night, Mouse Hunt?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, just sort of like it's like a Looney Tunes, that like the Tom and Jerry. It's it's just he's out of there, and you can't do anything about it.
She does have a certain Bugs Bunny quality to her.
Right?
Yeah, I can see
a little
that.
bit. Or a Speedy Gonzalez, or a...
Yeah, Speedy Gonzalez is a good one. He was always my favorite.
Because it's just so likable. And, Bugs as well. Yeah, it's just sort of a... No, we're not doing it that way.
But at the same time, like, we keep... Authority figures love her. We see Navani, like, sort of, trying to mother
Navani
her.
Adores her.
And it's just she somehow, and then even Kaladin to some extent, because we see a little bit of it in Urithiru, because talk about where is she not supposed to be. She was supposed to go with everyone else, and she decided, nah, I'll stay here in Urithiru. And it's like, oh look, who's not supposed to be here but is caught once again, just ruining everyone's plans, because she's here to just throw the monkey wrench into all their gears.
She's also just a little... Once she gets to Urithiru in particular, she's just a little bit outside of her comfort zone.
Yeah.
And
so we see her bumping into things now.
Well, because she's entering that awkward stage, where your body is just not the right size and things don't work right.
Well, and that's when we get that heart-wrenching scene with her and Wendell, where she finally opens up about why she's so worried about the fact she's changing. And Wendell hugs her, and it's just like, in a relationship no other Spren and Radiant can have, because they're the only ones that can touch each other like this.
Right, because she exists partially in the cognitive realm.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
She has some of the best nicknames she gives people as well. Calling Darkness is just like, that is so metal.
Yep.
To call someone Darkness.
Yeah, but then she calls Dalinar Kholin tight butt.
Yes. Well, because you can't trust someone that old with a tight butt.
Because there's just something wrong with that.
And then Gox, she has a thing about butts.
Oh, Gox. And then Gox, meanwhile, is just completely flummoxed by her. He has no idea how to handle himself. He's already awkward in his own way. And she comes along and just turns the world upside down. It's great.
Ends up starving Emperor.
That's another thing that's fun, is just Brandon with his swears. Of course she would have her own.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, she likes going and learning others, but starvin' is the one that she uses all the time.
And that
it's just like,
very well fits for her.
Uh-huh.
Food.
Well, because to her, what's the worst thing? What's the worst feeling? Starving.
Yep.
Well, and apparently she's quite accomplished at swearing, because Nightblood hears her swear, and he asks Zeth, do you think she'd be willing to teach me them?
Let me tell you, Lift plus Nightblood is the buddy cop movie I never knew I wanted.
Oh, man.
Like, I'm so, because we know that Kaladin and Zeth will be going off to try and go to.
I would not be surprised in the slightest if Lift comes.
I want Lift to come up, because then it goes from buddy, like, awkward buddy cops where it's like, you know. Mm-hmm. Kaladin's both are sort of weirdly by the book and go by their own rules.
One of them's a skybreaker and Kaladin's a soldier. You know?
Yeah.
And then have Lift come on, and it's like a parenting story as these two are trying to keep Lift together. And
like
in the
3
meantime,
Men and a Baby or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Plus, she is such a healer. Like, she heals both physically and emotionally, and those are two of the most emotionally broken characters in the whole series.
As I think about part of why they're going is they have to go help Ishar. Because
They're not going to help it. Oh, you mean she, like, a potential benefit of them going?
Well, no, because that's Dalinar. He asks Kaladin to help Ishar, because Kaladin's worked with people who are broken, and he's trying to heal them, and they need Ishar, because Ishar is the one who can explain not oathbinding, bondsmithing to right. Dalinar. But they gotta swear, like, he gave him a hint, you know, swear an oath around us, it helps us, type of thing.
And we've seen Lift swear an oath near a herald.
Yes, and it just occurred to me, Lift is the perfect person to go along with them, because frankly, look, in that regard, Seth is worthless. He is, you know, he is a couple eggs short of a dozen when it comes to his stuff.
His berserk button has been like, there's a woodpecker sitting on top of that berserk button, just rat-a-tat-tatting it, because he's heading he's going to a land that has clearly been attacked by Ishar's forces, because Ishar has his honor blade back.
Yeah.
And killed his father and killed Zeth's father to get it. But he's also really not happy with these people, because they made him truthless and he was not.
Yeah.
He was right. Mm-hmm. Like, because he's going there. His purpose is to fulfill his fourth oath, to go on his crusade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but Lift is the perfect person to go along with them, because Kaladin and Zeth have some baggage between the two of them.
Uh-huh.
And she smooths a lot of things out.
Yeah, that's literally what she does.
She does.
Let's try to forget about who murdered who.
Because everybody's fine.
TKO My in chat says, Ishar just needs a Lift hug, nail approved.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm reminded of an awkward zombie comic where it's Samus just like, she's pissed off that Ridley is in Smash now, and everyone's like, "What's the deal here?" And she's like, "They killed my parents," and Ridley's like, "It was one time."
We have strayed away from Vin a little bit. We've focused a whole lot on Lift.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting seeing. Now, part of that is because Vin's story is complete.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
While Lift, there's a whole lot we can speculate on.
Oh, yeah.
But it's really been interesting watching Lift progress, even just in the little interludes and then one novella we've gotten. Lift has become a major character. Mm-hmm. And we want to see where she goes.
You know, another thing they have in common that I don't think about, they both have a pet now. Vin had a Tedsoon, and she has
a magical pet.
Yeah, she has a
chicken.
She has a chicken.
Which also, I want to see what this chicken does for her.
Ooh, yeah.
Because you can tell she's gonna bond with it.
Mm-hmm.
Will Wendell get jealous?
No, Wendell will be glad. He's like, oh, finally, a moment to myself.
He'll probably think that, but then he probably will get a little bit jealous. I could see that.
Fair point.
But I don't know. I love the concept of it's hilarious because look, this is a popular fantasy trope, right? The street urchin that somehow becomes the key to saving the kingdom type of thing.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because one of the other ways that these two are we see destined to help with this, both have had shards very active in their lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vin a little more directly,
and it
was two of them doing it simultaneously and causing just all sorts of I know that you know that I know that you know logic games.
Right.
But Cultivation clearly has a plan for Lift.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, she's, in my opinion, the one who's most directly touched. Because Dalinar, Cultivation touched 3 people, but Dalinar was touched for honor. Taravangian, we have seen, was touched for odium.
Oh.
And Lift has been touched for Cultivation herself. I mean, these are the lights that power each of them: Stormlight, Voidlight, and Lifelight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see how that all spins out.
It's interesting. It's also interesting because the character I keep coming just in my head as far as their role in a plot. Lift reminds me a lot, just weirdly, of Captain Jack Sparrow, where it's this constant fly in the ointment, and it's the whole it's like you can always trust a dishonest man to be dishonest. Honestly, it's the honest ones you got to watch out for. And because she's so unpredictable, no one knows what she is capable of, and the more you try and sort of put her in a box and try and figure her out, the more that she rails against the box itself. Mm-hmm. Like almost a will shaper in some ways. Just
in your Jack Sparrow comment, the whole "you are clearly the worst pirate I've ever heard of," and his response is, "But you have heard of me."
But you have heard of me.
And that fits Lift.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then just because of her weird nature, and that's another thing, because of the way they've been touched by shards, they have game-breaking abilities that no one else has. Vin could pierce copper clouds in a way that no one else could other than Steel Inquisitors, and could burn the mist themselves,
right?
Which a little overpowered. I think there's a game balance issue there. But Lift at the same time, she's like, okay, well, I can just touch things in the cognitive realm. She can see Seth's stapled soul.
She can eat food and have Stormlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Lifelight.
Well, Lifelight, sorry.
Investiture.
Lifelight. Investiture.
And it's these abilities that make, they're very skilled without these abilities. Like, this isn't, what are you without these abilities type of thing. But these extra abilities they have make them the absolute nightmare for any sort of game plan you have. And she very much like early Vin, she's still only barely coming into her powers. We see that like when they have the battle at Hearthstone. You would think Kaladin would be relying on Lift. Lift's the most experienced of all the edge dancers, but he's relying on other edge dancers who probably have more purposefully, applied themselves to these things.
Whereas Lift's have more poise.
Yeah, whereas Lift is sort of, she's an awkward teenager now, and she's bumping into things, and she's just barely figuring out what it is she can do. And I think we're gonna see much like Vin as Vin starts experimenting with things because of that weird street urchin way of looking at things. They're more resourceful than other people in a similar situation. Vin was able to discover the 3 horseshoe trick, whereas every other Mistborn was just going on spike highways and stuff like that, or pewter dragging. Heaven help you. Yeah. And then I think I have a feeling Lift is going to be very similar. She's probably going to figure out some things that everyone else is going to overlook because everyone else is from the military, from rigid
she's so unconventional.
Yeah, if you all are following the same conventions, then you're going to do things the same way versus Lift goes whichever way she feels like.
The one character we haven't really seen Lift interact with that I really want to see, I want to see Lift interact with Shallan.
That could be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I personally want to see Lift interact with Wayne, but that's a crossover that
don't know if that's going to happen.
I mean, the timing works, but
my new ship.
Yeah, honestly, I could ship that a little bit. Waift.
Needs to be a little bit older.
Well, we don't.
No, because it happens. Between the era 2 happens between, so.
Okay.
She will be a bit older.
She'll be a bit. I was just like, current Lift is too young.
They both have sort of similar ideas of ownership.
Yes.
Very, very vague ideas of what ownership really means.
Yep. No, so pulling it back to Vin again, though, Vin and Lift. One thing that I think is interesting is we mentioned Lift is trying as hard as possible not to grow up to the point where, like we said, she went to the Night Watcher. Vin, on the other hand, was forced to grow up very, 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 very quickly.
Yep. She lost her childhood.
Vin has been an adult since she was, a child. Which, that sentence doesn't make sense, but it does. Since she was, just a little girl, she's had to be a grown-up.
Yeah.
And so it's a cool contrast. And I think that's kind of at the root of their differences. They have very similar backgrounds in some ways and very different in others, but they're handling them in very divergent ways.
But both still have a core arc of trying to figure out who it is they actually are. Because for Vin, it was a lot of the, she gets pulled into Kelsier's world and suddenly she's living this double life. And she finds that she likes these parties and this nice, the beautiful things of the nobles. But she also knows the terrible cost that comes with them.
Yeah, the scene where she sees the stable boy or whoever, the poor little Ska, get killed.
Yeah.
Just brings it back to her that she's like, oh, that's actually me over there. So I have to be very careful.
Yeah.
She starts to slip into the mask a bit.
Yeah, but I liked that she didn't discount the fact that there is value in this beauty. There is value in the things that they make. And just because it's, just because something is bought with a terrible price doesn't mean that thing, you should just cast it aside. Sometimes that terrible price is where it's like, okay, let's figure out how to get this thing without the terrible price. Let's do something. Let's figure that out. And it allows her to sort of be a bridge between the two as their society then tries to figure out what this means going forward when Ellen comes in and shakes up the social order. Where Lift's identity issue is the fact that she wants to stay that little girl, and she's not, and she's, whether she likes it or not, she's growing up, and she's growing up in some very unique and important ways, and learning what it is to start to take responsibility and put down roots and to build everything around you up, which is that's not her default mode. She's not a builder, she's a drifter by default. And it's causing her a lot of pain.
Yeah. Vin has trouble making connections, and so she cuts everything off, just like she won't let herself bond to anyone or anything. Lift has trouble letting go.
I mean, it's
She's
in her
holding
oaths.
on to-
Mom.
What?
It's in her oaths. She has to remember.
Well, and it's interesting because we see, she uses being slick as one of her, her most common ability that she uses. But the opposite of that, which is also part of hers, is to is to cling to things and not let go.
Well, and to preserve people with the healing power as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. We'll come back around for final thoughts on this, but we should probably start moving on. We actually do have an email this week. It is from Secret Searcher Hiram B. He says, "Hey, Bill, Jordan, and Amy. I've been a fan for a little while now, and I recently read Dawn Shard and listened to your discussion, and I have a theory. In the book, and I may be wrong, the mural that holds the Dawn Shard change is described as a sun that was split into 4 and then 4 again. And from that, you guys got the 16 shards. What if the 4 groupings of the shards represented the Dawn Shards? Like there are 4 shards that embody each Dawn Shard, such as for change, there's ruin, cultivation, invention, and something else. And for unity, say, if that's a Dawn Shard, we would have devotion, dominion, honor, and another one. And for survive, again, if that is one, there would be preservation. I know this is kind of just a half theory, but I know if anyone can complete it to a suitable level, it'd be you guys and the queen of the Cosmere, Amy. Thank you so much for reading this, and I'll definitely be listening for a long time." Well, we appreciate that. So thank you, Hiram, for writing in.
Thank you.
Well, first I want to ask Amy if will you use your newfound title as Queen of the Cosmere for good or for ill?
Of course for good, obviously.
Well, that's boring.
Yeah, I was waiting for the darkest timeline where Amy became.
Anyway.
Clip that, someone.
Yeah. So I kind of, I forgot to reread it until just a few minutes ago, just a few minutes before we did the podcast. So I don't have all of them figured out. And I mean, it doesn't help that we have 2 shards that we don't know what they are still. But from what he had, I'm not sure what to add to change. So he has ruin, cultivation, and invention. And then devotion, for unity, he has devotion, dominion, and honor. But for survive, I was kind of leaning towards preservation, like he said, and maybe autonomy and valor. But there's a lot of ways this could go, especially not knowing what the 4th one could potentially be. And I mean, it's just, there's a lot of factors
For change,
that we can't pin down.
For change, I could see whimsy being the missing one.
Yeah, that could maybe be it.
Yeah. I've seen this theory battered around a little bit, and I think a lot of people have come to this sort of a similar conclusion,
right?
Which I think there's some merit to it. I think we're naturally drawn to it because it reminds us of the allomantic chart,
right?
Yeah,
which 4 and then 4 within the
4 quadrants and 4 within the each quadrant.
And within each quadrant has sort of a category by itself, and we know that the preservation purposely set things up like this to remind people of this stuff, because he was trying to remind people of the 16% stuff to figure out.
And just so people, if you're confused why they said change, unity, and survive. Change is clear because it's made clear in Dawn Shard. Unity and survive are both words that have shown up capitalized in odd circumstances. And so I think that's why a lot of people kind of gravitate to that.
Are drawn to those, yeah.
So just so that that's clear.
Brandon
but we haven't really seen a fourth one that's obvious yet.
No.
So.
Well, and Brandon doesn't tend to put things in all caps unless it's the characters we see in all caps most often are Odium and the Stormfather.
Basically, the ones that are speaking through,
Yeah, that are always yelling. Stormfather in particular. He literally rumbles. Mm-hmm. It's a heck of an accent, but and so it's a theory that people are bantering about that I think there's something to it, but I also think because it fits so neatly into the idea of the allomantic chart, I think Brandon might have something else in mind just because it almost just feels too easy, and because of that I almost say it makes too much sense. No, Brandon like,
can't be that straightforward. It's got to be a little bit tricky.
I'm not ready to second guess that much. So.
No, but let me put it this way. When Brandon doesn't tend to go for the easiest solution. He tends to go for the second or third iteration of the solution. And so I think what this theory is I think it's a good base for probably whatever it is. And we're missing details of how Brandon's going to iterate upon it, which makes sense because we're still not even really sure what a Dawn Shard is.
Yeah.
Like, we understand that, it's these commands that were used to, shatter ad nauseam, but we're just like, what does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, that, how does one command a godlike being? That seems backwards to me.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of those things that I love completing lists, and I've tried. I bannered about with a theory of my own of back before we got a bunch of these new shard names. This with Rhythm of War, about trying to figure out who the remaining shards were, using a similar thing, saying preservation based it on the allomantic chart based on the shards. And if we use this as a basis of a theory, can we try and figure out how he would group these things and stuff? And so the other thing that complicates it, if you want to use the allomantic chart as a basis, is Brandon messed up the allomantic chart? Specifically the ferrochemical chart, I should say.
Yes. The ferrochemical chart.
Because brass wasn't supposed to be brass. It wasn't supposed to store warmth. It was... Oh, dang, I'm trying to remember. I'd have to go look at it. But basically, you're like...
But there was one that he did. He switched it or something.
Yeah, you're like, that doesn't fit at all. And then Brandon is fully admitted. He's like, yeah, I kind of forgot.
It just happened.
And so that's why this quadrant's now
it's
the hybrid quadrant, i.e. a mistake.
Dysgraphic programmer in chat said that he's been calling this theory Cosmere philosophical Sudoku. And I approve of that term.
That's good.
I approve as well. Boom.
Very nice.
It's now 6 canon. That's how it works, right? If two of us say it, it's now 6 canon.
I agreed. Yeah, 2. I like it.
Okay.
So 3.
Okay. We do love hearing from our listeners, so please keep sending in questions. Ask us about the Cosmere. Drop us ideas for topics that you would like for us to discuss during the show. And while we're at it, we'd love to hear your feedback about how you think we're doing. If you've got any interesting theories you might have about what's going on in the Cosmere, if you have just direct feedback or thoughts on how the show is going, send any questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and we could read that as part of the show. We do have a P.O. box as well. You can send letters to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. Outside of the show, we've got our own personal projects. Amy, why don't you start us off and tell us what you've been up to?
So my Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. My Instagram is @coincidence_cosplay, and my website is www.coincidencecosplay.com, or my Etsy is etsy.com/shop/coincidencecosplay. I also have TikTok, which is Coincidence Cosplay. I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it is, but I don't have anything up there yet. So if you want to follow me, that's fine. But I don't have anything yet. But someday soon, I will.
If you want to be the first to find out about what Amy's been up to.
There you go. So I have actually been continuing to be kind of slow on progress because I started physical therapy for my wrist, and I'm trying to take it easy on it. And so, because I'm strengthening the muscles in here and I'm getting the tendons to not be so tight. So that means I can't sew for 6 or 7 hours in a go. It doesn't work too well.
That's no fun.
Yeah. Don't do that, children. It hurts you. So I finally figured stuff out with my Silhouette Cameo, which is a machine cutter, so that I can make my dice easier to make that way. So I need to do a little more with that. But then also I am just making more dice. I think I'm going to try and figure out how to do more things on TikTok. And yeah, I'm just kind of hanging out and enjoying the summer with my kids and hiding from the fireworks, or my husband hid with the fireworks.
Cool.
With my dog.
Okay. Jordan, how about you?
Before I go into my stuff, Amy, I just want to let you know about your dice. We had friends over today, and their kids were playing with the D20, and I explained how it worked. And so then I rolled it, and I asked them what I rolled, and they told me I rolled a 21 on the D20. And so there's something wrong with your dice, apparently. I don't know. Apparently I'm so good at rolling that... according to these children, I rolled a number that was impossible. So
I've been using that that die as a pillow several times. So I'm clearly, something wonderful is exuding from me and making it better.
Making it even better than ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's just obviously true. That's how this works. You can find me on
better than math.
You can find me at twitch.tv/splicestream. I've started a new thing. If you're into Super Smash Brothers, I've started something called the Amiibo Raid Boss Tower. People have been training Amiibo, which are these figurines that have AIs in them that will try and mimic how they fight. They load them up with a bunch of stats that boost them and make them these ungodly monsters. And now you have the distinct advantage of you could try and fight them and try to climb up the raid boss tower. If you win, the higher up you get, the more that we are impressed by you. There's no cash prizes. I don't have things like that for people, but it is a ton of fun. So if you're into Smash Brothers and you're looking for a different type of challenge, Tuesdays, every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to start doing Tower Tuesdays. And come and try and climb up the tower.
I have tried this myself, and I failed miserably. It was embarrassing.
I have not.
Amiibo are very. If you're used to Super Smash Brothers, Amiibo have distinct advantages. Being a computer, they react way faster than a human ever could. They have and then they have statistical advantages on top.
In other words, they cheat.
Very much so. The computer is a cheating. I was trying to think of some like swear word for it, but it just failed me. Starving problem. And I found it to be a ton of fun. We've been slowly building up the stable with different Amiibo trainers offering up their Amiibos. So I think it's fun. And most importantly, you're going to think it's fun. I guarantee it. I'm Jordan Davis,
for myself,
I'm the founder of the Raid Boss Tower.
As for myself, I've got another podcast with my friend Dylan. We talk about board games. It's called The Innkeeper's Table, and we have new episodes coming out on Friday mornings. The most recent episode we had was called I Enjoyed Seven Wonders, What Should I Play Next? And it's pretty much what it sounds like. We made recommendations for different games if you enjoyed Seven Wonders. Next episode, we actually talk about a specific game mechanic where we talk about negotiation, where you're talking to people, and it's a little bit more of a subjective rule type thing because it's based on what can you convince somebody else to do for you. I talk about the definition of diplomacy is letting someone else get your own way. And yeah, that said, the exciting thing is tomorrow we have a big announcement coming out. Keep an eye on our Instagram over at Innkeeper's Table Podcast. And then I also have several board game reviews over on www.innkeeperstable.com, and I occasionally post about games on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under a different profile, which is at Innkeeper's Table. Innkeeper's Table Podcast, Innkeeper's Table. They're connected, but they're two separate things. So you should check those out. For those of you who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you can't become a patron, we would love it if you just let your friends know about the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. And if you want to toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, we would love that. So please, let people know. We'd appreciate it. All right, guys. Final thoughts on our 2 favorite street urchins.
It's awesome. They're awesome.
I find it very interesting how Brandon can take a very, very tropey trope. My English is great tonight.
You're wording well.
English is
I word great.
Capital.
The proper term is Ingle talking.
Yes, it is Ingle. It's true. Kids, that's what's called a callback, and it approves almost every single joke you could ever do.
Explaining the joke makes it better. Thank you, Jordan.
It does. Look, that's the other thing. Let me explain the joke. No. He takes this trope that it'd be so easy to just sort of phone it in, and instead Brandon is able to do it twice, very differently, and in a very interesting way, and we're only partway through one of these characters' arcs, and so it'll be very interesting to see when we whenever we're sitting here in 2092 when Brandon finally finishes everything, seeing where it is that Lift actually ends up.
Yeah. No, I'm very interested to see where Lift goes. There's just so much potential for her, and again, I am looking forward to seeing Lift as more of a grown-up character.
Then I can cosplay her and not feel weird about it. It would be great. Because right now I'm like, she's like 13. That feels weird because I'm a lot older than that. So
you're gonna have to grow your hair out a lot.
That's what wigs are for, Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Wigs.
Is that what I didn't
Also,
realize.
I do not have black hair. I have very brown hair.
True. The other thing is just I think it's going to be very interesting to. Vin had in my opinion, the perfect character arc, as far as it ended perfectly. And
she was at peace with everything.
Particularly when she shows up in Secret History.
Yeah.
And you just see how complete she's become.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her character arc ends with her, it had both the symmetry of what her mentor did, dying to save everyone else, to sacrifice yourself for the greater good. But it also was the completion of her final arc of she's now entrusting the rest of this planet to everyone else. She's trusting everyone else to finish up her work.
Yeah.
Well, and also the end of the arc that Reen was teaching her, you got to look out for number 1. She makes the ultimate sacrifice for everyone, not just for Elend, not just for each member of the crew. She does it for the whole world. And it's really.
And I mean, at that point, Elend was already dead too.
Yes.
Yeah, and both made their big heroic sacrifice to do it, and so that's what Lift has to compete with, the perfect character arc. So, best of luck to you, Lift. You'll find a way to do it, though. She'll get where she's not supposed to.
Yep.
Special thanks go to our patron producer, Mim's Laundry Service. Mim's Laundry Service. Blood comes out of clothes with cold water and baking soda. Don't ask us how we know. In addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions for the show, email them to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. For our next episode, we are going to be doing a survey of all the heralds and their last known or last suspected locations. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure to be here for the live recording on July 19th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.twitch.tv/Innkeeper's Table. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always
always another secret.